Promises. They can make or break a prime minister. Justin Trudeau promised to do things differently. Politics is in his blood. When he was born on Christmas Day in 1971, the nation literally celebrated his birth. And when he was sworn in as prime minister just 44 years later, it looked like Trudeau-mania all over again. Canadians lined the streets to catch a glimpse of the Trudeaus, Justin, his wife Sophie, and their adorable children. So how did he pull off that victory? Remember, the Liberals were in third place and he won a majority with the promise of real change.
A positive, optimistic, hopeful vision of public life isn't a naive dream. It can be a powerful force for change.
Trudeau arrived on Parliament Hill with a record 15 women in his cabinet, in particular 2 high-profile newbie MPs, seemingly thrilled by his pledge to do politics differently, Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott. And when he was asked why so many women, his answer went viral.
Because it's 2015.
Also promised open and honest government, saying under Stephen Harper, the government has grown secretive and closed off to Canadians. Unprecedented power has been concentrated in the hands of the Prime Minister and his office. But is Justin Trudeau really different? Now he's the one being accused of playing the same old backroom games.
Trudeau's interference was not about jobs. It was out protecting a Liberal-linked, well-connected corporation with an army of government lobbyists.
And those 2 high-profile women he put on a pedestal, seems they were pretty serious about doing things differently. Both have resigned as cabinet ministers. And now another MP, Selina Cesar-Chavannes, says she was met with anger after she told Trudeau she would not be seeking re-election. Telling the Globe and Mail he was yelling that I didn't appreciate him, that he'd given me so much. Trudeau's office says there was absolutely no hostility, but the PM added.
Obviously, we have faced a tough few weeks in regards to some of the members of our team.
Joining me now to talk about all of this is Liberal MPP and former Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne. So quite a week or two. You've got 2 senior cabinet ministers have resigned. Now you've got another MP who is saying that the PM was yelling at her. So he said he was going to do things differently. Is he that doing things differently feminist PM, or is he the man that these women are portraying?
So I don't think the one precludes the other. You know, I think that one of the unfortunate things that has happened is that this incident, which is serious, Wendy. I mean, I'm not in any way diminishing the severity of what has happened, and there is more that needs to be done, and it needs to be repaired.
So what needs to be done?
Well, but let me just say that, you know, I don't think that this incident wipes out all of the good that Justin Trudeau has done. It doesn't wipe out the lifting of children out of poverty. It doesn't wipe out climate change action. It does not change the values of this man who's been our Prime Minister.
This is almost like a mutiny. You know, you stood by your former Premier, Dalton McGuinty, when he was caught up in a scandal. Normally parties stick together. They're like stabbing him in the face. They're doing politics differently.
So there is obviously a real rift that has happened. But as I said, I think that what needs to happen now is that the Prime Minister needs to find a way to address that. This is a very bad situation. As I said, I'm not diminishing it. But at the same time, there are bridges that can be built, and there's a way of bringing people together. It is up to him to do that. It's up to him to figure out how to do that.
Though? It just keeps happening. He reaches out, and Jody Wilson-Raybould says, "No, buddy." And now you've got another MP saying, "Stop yelling at me."
Yeah, I don't know, but that's part of the leadership role. You know, part of the leadership role is to find a way to create a forum to bring people together to address what has happened.
How bad is this? You sound worried about where this is going.
I am worried because I think that what is starting to happen is the whole record of the government is being negated in some way. And I believe that the critics of the Prime Minister, the critics of the government, have been waiting for something to jump on and say, oh, well, everything that the government has done, everything the Prime Minister stands for
this is his cabinet
nothing.
ministers too.
I understand that. And that's why it has to be dealt with. I am not diminishing what the women who have spoken up are saying, because I think it's a very serious situation. But I also don't believe that what has happened negates all the good that has been done by the government.
But is that the argument, that he's not as bad as Andrew Scheer? It's not.
No, it's not.
Slogan.
No, it's not. It's not. I think there's an element of we have to compare people to the alternative, not the almighty. But I also believe that in absolute terms, Justin Trudeau is someone who has a value system that he has expressed for years. I think that is intact. But this incident has obviously shaken everyone's perspective, shaken everyone's trust in that, and he needs to address that.
So is it possible, doing politics differently?
Is there a way to do politics so that there's no conflict among the people who are doing the politics? No, there's always conflict. There was conflict in my own government in terms of our caucus and our cabinet. There were lively discussions about so many things. Conflict is part of the human condition. It's how we deal with it, it's what we do with it, and it's how we use it to fuel a better relationship. And that's the opportunity in this horrible situation that has happened.
Thanks so much for talking to me.
Okay, thanks.
Former Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne. In just a moment, we're going to talk to Green Party leader Elizabeth May, who had some tough questions for the Prime Minister's now former Principal Secretary, Gerald Butts, all about backroom dealing as he testified before the Justice Committee this past week.
I am surprised that in your evidence you don't make reference to two people that I think played a very big role in this drama, the Clerk of the Privy Council and the lawyer for SNC-Lavalin. So I'm going to ask how it is that you don't seem to recognize that the heaviest intimidation of our former Attorney General came from one-on-one meetings with the Clerk of Privy Council September 19th, and that with that following phone call December 19th.
I find the accusations leveled against him completely inconsistent with his character.
That was such a remarkable moment, because normally you never get to see a Prime Minister's most senior staff being grilled about what happens out of the public eye. We learned so much from those hearings this week, and here's a bit more. So who are the men, and yes, they're all men, working behind the scenes on the SNC-Lavalin file? Number one, Michael Wernick. He's the boss of Canada's entire public service. Most everyone on the Hill reports to him, and he's the Prime Minister's deputy minister.
My career is on the public record. I have held the highest security clearances that this country can offer for many years. I was named to deputy minister level positions by Prime Ministers Chrétien, Martin, Harper, and Trudeau.
Number two, Kevin Lynch. He's now the chair of SNC-Lavalin's board, but he used to have Wernick's job. The company hired him when it began facing bribery charges, and Wernick has now revealed that Lynch called him last October to plead SNC-Lavalin's case.
Can you not see how disturbing this could be for Canadians to see that former clerks who are now chairs of boards of SNC-Lavalin have easy access and immediate access into the central office of this government, into your office, when you turned down everybody else and walked out of a gala because you didn't want to see SNC anymore? Do you not see that as a problem for this country?
No.
We know there was an official effort by SNC-Lavalin to lobby the Prime Minister's office, 19 instances recorded in the registry since 2017. But here's the thing, phone calls from a former associate who now has your old job don't have to be reported. The call from Lynch wasn't revealed until this week, but it was totally legal. So what happened next? Well, according to Jody Wilson-Raybould's testimony, Wernick called her to argue the SNC case.
The clerk said that the Prime Minister is quite determined, quite firm, but he wants to know why the DPA route, which Parliament provided for, isn't being used. He said, quote, I think he is going to find a way to get it done, one way or another.
And on that same day, October 15th, another senior SNC-Lavalin player was seeking influence behind the scenes. Number 3, the CEO of SNC-Lavalin, Neil Bruce, wrote this letter to the Prime Minister pushing for a meeting ASAP. Trudeau wrote back saying that he couldn't meet since it was before the courts. He instead passed the letter on to, guess who? Jody Wilson-Raybould. And there's one more important player. Number 4, SNC-Lavalin's lawyer, Frank Lacobucci. He's a former Supreme Court justice who also crossed over to private industry and has handled some really big files. Wilson-Raybould says that Wernick warned her that Lacobucci is no shrinking violet and will put up a fight if the company is prosecuted. Joining me now from Edmonton is MP and Green Party leader Elizabeth May. So you've been raising concerns about people in the corporate world, powerful people, having access to powerful people advising the Prime Minister. What exactly is your concern? What's wrong?
Well, listen, there's two sets of rules in this country. There's the rules for people who are part of the billionaire class, and then there's the rest of us. And I hadn't really come up against it as forcefully at any time in my life as I've seen what's been transpiring around SNC-Lavalin.
Don't these relationships always happen? Why is this particularly disturbing?
It's not about the relationships, it's about the power relationships. So the Prime Minister's office for far too long has too much power. We haven't broken down that culture that PMO and the people in PMO see themselves as fixers. And if they see that there's a goal that suits them politically or in terms of public policy, they bulldoze to get it done. And I don't think that's right.
I'm just wondering whether Justin Trudeau is really any better or any worse than any leader who came before him. I mean, it's easy to criticize, particularly like you're one MP. You're not the Prime Minister. It's a different game when you're in power.
Well, I don't think it's a game. I think democracy is really important, and I don't mean to make light of the way you put the question, Wendy, but I don't think, I would never say for a moment Justin Trudeau is worse. What I'm pointing to is the culture. A culture that says, and a lot of this, by the way, the worst conduct in the saga so far is the civil service and the Clerk of Privy Council spending an hour and a half on the phone telling Jody Wilson-Raybould essentially, you better change your mind as Attorney General or you'll find yourself in trouble.
Is it possible, though, to actually do things different? To do things differently and get elected?
I hope so. The assumption that there are jobs versus justice is really offensive to me because far too often large corporate polluters, large corporate white-collar crime finds itself a way out of the course of justice, often with claims backed up with job blackmail. So I think that you can get things done and you can get reelected because I frankly think Canadians want to know that rules are applied fairly and the rule of law is respected.
SNC-Lavalin size company is going to fight back. I mean, of course they're going to do all the lobbying that they can. Is this really that unusual, or are we just seeing more of it because of Jody Wilson-Raybould?
What I've pointed to is a culture, and it stems from having too much power in the Prime Minister's office and having a culture of people surrounding the Prime Minister who see themselves not as public policy experts or seeking the public good, but as fixers. If there's a barrier to something that your party wants or that the government writ large wants, they want to bull ahead and get it, and that's not right. You have to sit down, work out what's the best thing in public policy terms, and you shouldn't have a different route to a result based on the people you know.